My next guest is an undefeated flyweight and bantamweight contender, and he trains out of Factory X MMA in Denver, Colorado, and he joins me right now. His name is Luis Grim Gurule. Mr. Grim, I appreciate you showing up. That's what I'm going to call you because Twisted Metal, man. That was like my favorite guy.
Yeah, man. I got that nickname. It was like my first fight. My coach Mark, he was like on some David Goggins stuff. Said, "I want you to go out there and take their souls." And I was the first fight. I was pummeling this dude. And I want your soul. You're done. You're broken. Call the fight, ref. They called the fight, and that nickname kind of stuck ever since then.
I love that nickname and I love watching you fight. You are very, very unique. 7 fights, 7 finishes, all by knockout. You're new to MMA, but like there's something about you. It's like you could tell this guy's been around combat sports for a little bit. And I was just hoping I could ask you there. Like there are a lot of people that you're a new guy on the radar. Competitively, you've been in MMA for only a short amount of time, but can you tell me a little bit like what is your combat sports background? Like where were you a boxer in your past life? Like what's up with that?
No, I mean, I was a wrestler in high school, wrestler in college. Did pretty well in both. Tore my knees in college, so I ended up not doing as well in nationals as I wanted to, or I didn't end up going actually. So probably that's where I got that chip on my shoulder, still wanting to compete, you know. But yeah, man, I've been fighting since I was young, you know, just fighting in high school, fighting in the locker room, you know, we'd go to the locker room. All right, we're just gonna hit bodies, and first one to quit loses. And so it was always growing up like that. But I mean, just like you know, we have all these wrestlers coming in to MMA through Bellator, UFC, and it's just like once you've wrestled, everything else is easy. There's not much to add, besides striking. The mentality's there. It's just sharpening yourself and adding on to that striking bit.
You train at a Factory X MMA in Denver. I've had several of your teammates on this show before. Josh Fremd has been on here. Austin, Oscar have been on here. So you're the fourth or fifth guy that's been on this show. And when I talk to you guys, it seems like everyone kind of comes from like different walks of life, but you all work together so well in the room. And that's kind of a little bit rare, especially for a big gym like yours, because sometimes being in the media, I'll hear stories like, oh my gosh, this big box gym, you don't want to go there. Like, too many egos there, too many crazy guys there. You should go to a smaller gym. And I kind of wanted to ask you, like, I don't get that vibe from Factory X MMA. I get a very different vibe. It seems like, despite it being a really close, a really big gym, you guys are actually quite close.
Yeah, man. I think that goes to Coach Mark. When he brings you in, he wants to make sure that your attitude and your ego, everything else that you have, your personality is going to fit in with the gym. We go on like a probationary period pretty much just to see if we fit. And I think we've created something really special here at Factory X. We're a band of brothers. I get way more nervous for my boys' fights than I do my own. I hate fighting on cards with other people because I'm so nervous for theirs. I'm like adrenaline dumping after their fight, and then after I go on for mine, I'm like, man, I'm chill. Like, this is what I'm here for. But I get more nervous for my brothers than I do for myself.
Can you tell me, Luis, a little bit about the guys that you're getting working with? Like, who've been your main training partners for this camp, and what is that experience like, kind of day in and day out, hitting the mats with some of these guys?
Yeah. So Jonathan Davis, really good southpaw striker, good kickboxer, had some good grappling. So been working with a lot of the southpaws at the gym, like Brandon Royval, Chris Gutierrez, Yusuf Zalal, and that's just the bigger name guys. I've been working with the regional southpaws too, like my boy Rigo, is a big one, Clay Matza. So all these guys are really specialized in their niche, and honestly, no disrespect, I feel like these are some of the best southpaws in the world. So what I see from them day in, day out, I'm not going to be surprised by whatever I see in the octagon when I go in there and fight against Jonathan Davis on the 27th.
Chris Gutierrez, you brought his name up. He actually did an interview last year, and I would shout out the name of the publication that did it. I don't remember who it was, so my bad. But Chris Gutierrez talked about Marc Montoya being sick, and he talked about how that brought out the best performances of his career. And he talked in depth about not wanting to let coach down and wanting to just put his heart and soul out there, because anything less than like maximum effort would be disrespectful. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that's the
Yeah.
gist of what he said. Did you have a similar experience?
Yeah. That hit the whole team really hard. But I think the biggest thing that I took away from it, especially just seeing Coach Mark go through it, he'd still be in the gym. He got into the gym as soon as possible. Um, he flew to Chris Gutierrez's fight when he fought Frankie Edgar. Everyone was telling him not to, or at least to, drive there if he was going to. Coach Mark said, "Fuck all of you guys. I'm gonna do it for my team." And just seeing that attitude, it makes me want to put so much more effort, so much more focus day in and day out, which I already have that mentality since I'm coming from, I've only been doing MMA for 2 years. So I really feel like I have this catch up mentality where I have to be super focused and diligent every day. And just seeing the work that man puts in, and it's really inspiring, really makes me want to be a better fighter, better person. He's always saying, I want to make you a champion in the ring. I want to make you champion out of the ring. So just him doing that just really makes you want to take it to the next level.
I have noticed something about every time one of you guys fight. And so over the years, I've seen pretty much everyone fight, whether it be Fremd, you, Oscar, Austin. Whether you win the fight or you don't win the fight, it seems like he says something to every single one of his fighters, and he shares a moment with everybody in the ring. And like, what are some of the things that he's told you in the past?
Yeah, man. I think the biggest thing is, just yeah, whether it's a tough fight, whether it's an easy one, winning's hard. You gotta take the time to be in the present. You know, uh, once you do that, you can't beat yourself up over like maybe the little mistakes that you made. Maybe you can do that later on in the weeks when you do your evaluation. But just trying to stay in the moment, staying present, super important, especially in the fight. That's one of the biggest thing he tells me leading up to the fight is be present, focus on what you're feeling, focus on, the smell, the sights that you're seeing, really get in that moment. You don't need to be worrying about the next day or, what you did yesterday. If you're prepared, none of that matters. All that matters is that man in front of you. You guys are both fighting for the same thing. So you got to go out there and really put your all in that cage.
Fury FC 79, you took on a very difficult prospect in Carlos Lozoya. Carlos, when I think of him right away, I immediately think of wrestling. I immediately think of
Mm,
grappling. He's somebody that has had a lot of success, especially when fights hit the ground. And
yeah.
given your background at wrestling as well, I was curious, like, what was your mindset kind of going into that fight against Carlos? That was a very high level fight, and that was one that I had circled on my schedule. I was like, this is going to be a really, really high level fight. I don't know what's going to happen. I want to see these two gladiators go at it, because this is going to be something where whoever wins this fight is going to have to freaking earn it, because the other guy is just
Mm.
not going to go down easily at all. This is going to be a freaking fight. Can you break that one down for me? Because there was a lot to talk about for that one.
Yeah, Carlos. Yeah, Carlos was super tough, super hard to put away. My knuckles were sore for the next 2 months after that fight. They hurt so much. So we knew Carlos would probably come out grappling heavy, wrestling heavy. So I wrestling and grappling is what I'm best at. I just haven't had to do it in any of my fights. So luckily, Coach Mark has got my striking to a point where people are more worried about my striking now than my grappling and wrestling. So I wanted to make him uneasy on the feet, wanted to make him take bad shots or put him in precarious positions where I could capitalize with my Muay Thai, my elbows, my striking, my kicks. And that's exactly what happened, where I was able to chip away, chip away. He got a few really good takedowns once I started hitting him a little more. I started getting a little too confident on my feet, started throwing a little too heavy, trying to put him out, and he slid right under, got some really beautiful double legs. I was pissed off about that, but luckily I know how good he is once he has the back, so I was able to pop out of there right away. I don't want to play into a jiu-jitsu game when I'm best at wrestling. And so after that, he tried taking me down twice. I got up twice almost immediately. And after that, it felt like the fight really started piling on my way. Once he realized I'm not going to be able to keep him down. I don't know if I can outstrike him besides, a big, heavy, puncher's chance. And I just was able to put him away with my elbows mostly. That's really what I've been trying to improve on.
One thing about Carlos in particular is he is the first man that has ever taken you to 3 rounds. And I
Yeah.
felt like he really pushed you in ways that I haven't seen you push before in your previous fights. What was the hardest thing about fighting Carlos?
I think the hardest thing was trying to be patient. Especially my first 5 fights were all first round TKOs. My first 4 were even faster than the previous ones. So, I just kept getting faster and faster finishes. And I started noticing in my fights, I was starting to maybe push too much. I needed to be more patient in them because I was getting almost too impatient, putting myself in bad positions on the striking because I just wanted to take guys out in the first. So I was really proud of myself that I was able to stay calm, stay patient, stay composed, and really just push Carlos, pick my shots, and then just slowly chop down that tree.
Despite getting a win over a high level opponent like Carlos, like I think you alluded to a few things, but when your coach, and the rest of your teammates, when you go back and you look at the film, when you go back and you look at the fight against Carlos, did you see things about your game that you're like, these are the things that I have identified that I want to improve before my next fight?
Yeah, for sure. Me, Rafa, one of my other coaches, and Coach Mark usually do like an after fight action report, where I'll write down what I did good, well, what I need to improve on. And I definitely think one of the things I wanted to improve on was my defense, especially striking. Sometimes I get a little overeager trying to put a guy away, taking shots that I don't need to take when defensively I'm really sound. I'm really good at slipping, not getting hit, but really trying to work on that defensive striking as well as my defensive wrestling. I'm such an offensive, pressure heavy guy that sometimes it puts me in trouble where I don't need to be in trouble.
You're kind of an in-betweener. I could see you at bantamweight. I could also see you at flyweight. So before you decided to fight Jonathan Davis, was there a discussion about which weight class that you wanted to be in, or are you taking a bantamweight fight just because that's just how it worked out and Davis ended up being the best opponent for you?
Yeah, it's been pretty much I'll fight whoever will agree at this point. I'll fight any 25er, I'll fight any 35er. I'm that co-main event. The main event is the flyweight title for Fury. So I'll fight those guys. Whoever wins that one, I'll fight for the 125-pound belt if I need to do that too. So Jonathan Davis just ended up working well with the timing of things. So yeah, I don't really mind making 35. It's pretty easy for me to make. 25s, I just got to diet a little more. So either way, I'm ready for 125 or 135 fights.
Jonathan Davis is a 7-2 guy, and he's had a lot. He's also had a lot of success putting guys away, just like you have.
Mhm.
Maybe not so much with the hands, but definitely with the submission offense. We've seen that a few different times about him. What can you kind of give me your assessment? What makes Jonathan Davis a high level fighter, a good opponent for you at this time?
Yeah, I think definitely think his record speaks for itself. 7-2 is one of the best guys in the region. Also one of the best 35 pounders in Fury. So as I'm trying to make my name, he's doing the same thing. So, one of these top level guys meet, one of us has to lose, one of us is able to get that win in their win column. But I think he's going to be a great matchup for me striking wise. I think I'm really going to be able to take advantage of my speed and power. Even though I'm an in-betweener, I fight 25s and 35s. I don't really feel like anybody has matched me in the power department yet. Also, I think grappling wise, if he wants to take it to a grappling style fight, I don't think anyone's really seen me in a prolonged grappling exchanges, so they don't really know how good I am. So I feel like I'm definitely underestimated in that regard at this point. To where I feel like other camps are going to be wanting to try to explore that aspect of fighting, where maybe we can take them down, we can out jujitsu him, out wrestle him. And I think if that's the case, he's going to be in for a short night.
I'm friends with Torres Finney. He's 5'9" and he's a middleweight, and he comes from a very heavy wrestling background. And he told me,
Mhm.
I love being the short guy. I love fighting tall guys. He's like, I absolutely freaking love it. They're easier to fight compared to the short guys. I was wondering if
Yeah.
that was something that you agreed with as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like there's way more room for me to slip, way more room to roll under. There's more room for shots. I feel like the biggest thing in that regard is just taking distance, trying to avoid those knees, those kicks that come out of nowhere. But I mean, I'm training with the best people in the world that are almost that same body type where they're like lanky or they're good at kicking or good at knees. So I definitely feel like just training at Factory X every day has prepared me for any possibility that happens in the ring.
I wanted to briefly kind of hit up on what I think is an important question. You're a relatively new prospect on the scene, but I've watched you fight several times before. You're very, very exciting. I think of pressure fighting. I think of striking. I'm looking forward to seeing the other elements of your game that I just haven't seen yet because I know that you probably have a lot of other tools in the toolbox there that you haven't been able to show quite yet. But I wanted you to kind of have that opportunity for people that are going to be watching your fight on Fight Pass for the very first time. They're like, this Factory X dude, okay, impressive record. He knocks people out. Like, okay, I'm curious. I want to learn more about him. What is it that somebody who's never seen you fight before and they're sitting at home and they're watching this on the couch? What's one thing or two things about yourself that they ought to know about before they really start paying attention?
And they just need to know to expect violence every fight. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to try to finish him in the most violent way possible. I want to make them bleed. I want to get those TKOs. You know, any exchanges, I want to come out on top. I want to hurt him. I want to break him. And by the end of the fight, I just want to utter domination of anyone that I fight. I want to finish them. I need to break them.
Luis, a win over this guy would put you at 6-0 and seemingly in the driver's seat for two different potential title opportunities, possibly the Fury FC flyweight title, possibly the bantamweight title, or maybe elsewhere, depending on if there's a more lucrative option for you as well. And then there's also kind of like the thought in the back of my mind, like, okay, well, 25ers, they need those guys all the time,
Mm-hmm.
as in the UFC as well. Guys drop out of fights. You seem like somebody that they would give a call. So I was just kind of wondering, as far as like the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, what are some of the goals that you and your coaches have?
Yeah, well, definitely number one goal is going to be to get into the UFC. I'd like to be a 125er in the UFC. I think just the matchups really are going to be better for me there. I think I'm going to have more power than anybody there. And I think my particular style of pressure, heavy offense, definitely something exciting, something that not a lot of 25ers have right now in the UFC is that finishing power. I want to be like Brandon Royval, that's like one of my inspirations for fighting. He's so exciting, always going out there for a finish, always bonusing. It's one of my biggest goals right now is to be in the UFC end of 23, early 24. If I need to get a couple more fights, a couple more finishes, it's definitely something I'm open to. I'm already telling them, schedule me end of September, schedule me October. I want to be as active as possible. I want to get up these wins, notch up these wins. So that way there's just no excuse not to have me in the UFC.
Well, Luis, you're one of the prospects that I am having a close eye on. You're very impressive. You're very entertaining to watch, and I would love to see you ascend to that next level. I think your skill set translates over really nicely into that next level, and I think yeah, I do agree. I can't think of anyone at your size that is as strong. I can't think of anybody like, especially with the striking power and putting people away. I mean, that's it's been impressive to see, and you've been doing it against increasingly better opponents too. Like the knockouts,
Yeah.
the finishes haven't gone away. You've been able to maintain that despite fighting better and better guys. I think that's important to note.
Yeah, for sure. It's only going to get harder. I have to give myself a little grace if I don't put somebody away in the first round. These guys are good. Yeah, you look at yourself in the mirror, the other guy's doing the same exact thing. They're just as tough as you at that region, you know? So you really got to make sure you're doing everything that you can to give yourself that little edge in the ring, outside of the ring. But yeah, I'm hopefully another finish coming up, and the finishes will, just keep coming until I'm in undeniable for the UFC.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to Luis Gurule. You can catch his next fight on August 27th when he takes on Jonathan Davis. That will be streaming worldwide on UFC Fight Pass, Fury FC 82 in Houston. Make sure you tune in for that. Luis, I wanted to give you the final opportunity, sir. I know that you have a lot of people that work with you. So if there are any sponsors or coaches or anyone in your family that you just wanted to say thank you to, let's knock that out before I let you go.
Yeah, for sure. Just quick shout out, quick thank you to all my team at Factory X, my coaches. Couldn't do that without you at all. And of course, my family, my wife, always coming out with me to all my fights, always taking care of everything I need. So thank all of you. Appreciate it.
Luis, I appreciate your time today, and I look forward to your fight on August 27th, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having me.